Welcome to SAS tutorial, Getting Started with SAS Programming. SAS programs are always divided into steps. There are two types of steps. The first one we will talk about is the data step. This is where you manipulate data, you create data, do something with data. In this very small example here, with the data statements, we define a new dataset called A. We put a variable into the dataset A with a value of 1, and we terminate this data step by a run statement. This is all there is to make a dataset A and run. Submit the code, and in your log window you can now see that the code has been submitted and that we have created a dataset called work.a with 1 observation and 1 variable. This was the data step. If we want to see the data, we could use procprint to do that. Procprint run semicolon tells SAS that now we want to print, and what is printed is the last created dataset, and that is obviously A we have just done here. So if I submit the code here, you can in the log window see that we have printed A. We have actually run the dataset step A again and made it twice now, but nevertheless it's there, and we have the result of print here, and the output looks like this. This is actually the basics of SAS programming with a data step and a procedure step, and of course you can make all of the steps you need and mix them as you like. In the real world, data is always more complex than the previous example. Let's redefine data A and tell SAS that we now want to make A with the 2 variables. We do that with an input statement. Input name and age. With a $sign we tell SAS that name is a character variable. The card statement tells SAS now comes data. And run statement closes the data step. Let's submit the code. And in the log window you can see that dataset work.a now has 11 observations and 2 variables. If we want to see the content of data, I can use procprint again, run, execute the code, and see in the output window, here we have our data listed. Often you have your data lines and files outside on your files system somewhere, and therefore it is relevant to remove the data lines from your code and explain how to access data when they are not in the editor. You simply use an infile statement to do that. Infile, and then you give it a name, and the name you want to infile, that is where your file is located, and I have put the same data as you've seen here in a file outside on my file system called names.txt, and that file is actually here. I copy from the Explorer window, and names.txt was the file name, semicolon, and if I execute the code again, you will see that SAS is going out and reading the code from outside. 11 records were read from the file C blah blah blah, and the record length that was observed there, we got 11 observations and 2 variables created again, and we printed it, and here we go. Now we can see we have printed 2 twice. The first time was from where data came from inside the editor, and the second time was when we used the infile to point to the file where we want to pick up the data. Very often you'll find that your data source is Excel spreadsheets. Data from here you would like to get into your SAS environment to further manipulation. In this example I have a spreadsheet containing ranking data from the VTA tour, and I import the data into SAS simply by issuing a proc import pointing to where the file is. and where you want to store it. And the replace options tell SAS that if it is existing already, it has to replace it. And the name of the sheet. So proc imports is the statement to do this. When I submit the codes, I can in my log window actually see what has been going on. I can see I've read 100 observations from sheet 1 and created 100 observations and 5 variables. And now I could go back here and say I want to print it like we did before, proc print, semicolon run, execute the code and see all the variables in my output window. But as you see down here, I also have in my Server Explorer all my libraries allocated to me as a SAS user. I actually can see that I have my tables that we have created here. They are also shown here. So the VTA data is actually also available, where I can take a direct look into the datasets simply by using the Server Explorer window. A very useful statistical procedure with SAS is proc means. With this procedure you are able to do basic calculations on large datasets, and let's try to call proc means on the data we just created. We imported from Excel the dataset called VTA, and now if I issue proc means data equal VTA and run, I will get a report in my output window explaining getting all the basic statistical numbers on the numeric variables in the dataset. And this is of course not relevant for all the variables. Actually, I only want to do this on tours, which is the most reasonable one to do this on. The way I control what a procedure is working with is with a variable statement, var tours semicolon. If I submit this code, I can see that the last result I get, proc means, is only working on the variable tours. If you want to learn more about SAS programming, you can buy our programming guide on lulu.com. Search for VPS and SAS, and then you will find our programming guide for SAS programming in the VPS environment. Thank you very much for watching. Take a look at our website for further information. Thank you.